Good afternoon, everybody. Ed, thank you for being here and for wearing your sneakers.
Yeah, we match.
No less. I was going to change into proper shoes, but then I saw what you were doing. So
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you being here. It's a privilege.
And thanks for coming down. It's good to see everybody here.
It's good to see everybody. I want to talk to you this afternoon about Delta, but I really want to talk to you about your role as a leader and what it means to be a CEO today, and this conversation that we're having around the country, frankly, about capitalism and what good capitalism is supposed to be, and whether socialism or some variant of that is where we're all headed, and how you think about your role, and how so many people here who are entrepreneurs and leaders themselves should perhaps be thinking of all this. But I want to start at the beginning with you just for a minute, just take you back a little bit. I know you were here last year, so a lot of people, and here in Atlanta, a lot of people know you already. But the thing that I did not know about you is that you did not get on an airplane for the first time in your life till you were 25 years old.
It's true, 25 years old. I graduated from college. I didn't even know what it was, so I've had the good fortune of doing a couple of commencement addresses at some large universities. And I talked to people about following their dreams and pursuing their passions. Yet I feel like myself a bit of a fraud in doing that, because I didn't. That certainly wasn't in my point. I actually was probably afraid of them because I didn't know what they were. But at the same time, when the opportunity arose, you know, I ran towards it, and it's amazing where where things take.
But let's just go back, because it's an amazing story. So you were a consultant at PwC.
Yep.
You get on this plane at 25. You had never really been on a plane. You wanted to be on a plane?
I had never really wanted to be on a plane at that point. This was early 80s.
Do you remember what airline it was?
I do. It was United Airlines, and it was a flight.
How was the service?
It's pretty crappy. It was a flight from LaGuardia to O'Hare. And I was there for a client thing for a couple days and flew back. Actually, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, I did.
Coach?
Yeah, of course.
Middle seat?
Can't remember. But it was, but you know, I enjoyed it. And you know, travel opens your eyes. You know, the opportunity. I talk about it being magical. You know, the opportunities we have to see the world, be part of the world, be engaged on a global scale, not just a local scale, is what air travel does. And you know, technology, other things do to it, but air travel actually transports you, and I fell in love with it at that point.
Okay, we're going to get back to the onboarding, on-plane experience in a moment. I was on Delta coming down here. It was a good flight.
And if it wasn't, I would have heard about it.
But just walk us through how you went from 25 getting on the plane for the first time to being the CEO of the company.
We don't have enough time for that, Andrew.
No, but just do the quick version.
So I was with Price Waterhouse for about 12 years, New York. I'm from New York. Made partner there, and I didn't want to consult or advise. I wanted to do. So I went to work for PepsiCo. Don't have a graduate degree. I went to a small school in upstate New York, St. Bonaventure. I never really wanted to go back to school. I would like to get and start supporting myself and making some money. And I thought that PepsiCo was one of the best training grounds for future. I'd rather go to a PepsiCo and work there than pay to go to an MBA school. And actually, they paid me, which was pretty cool. Moved to Texas, did that with Frito-Lay and Pepsi for about 6 years. And then I came to Delta 20 years later. Finance was my orientation through school, through my early career. Became president 10 years ago and CEO 4 years ago.
Okay, but so I don't think of you as just a personality type. We have these sort of, I think we project onto people that they are like CEO material, right? That they act like a CEO. And I don't know what it means to even act like a CEO anymore. But one of the things that I find so fascinating about your story is, we were talking about being a coach, you end up flying your own planes all the time in the back of the plane.
Yep.
Like, that's what you do.
That's what I do. That's what actually I enjoy doing too.
And that's leadership to you, though.
Yeah. You know, I'm not always. I'm going to Korea tonight. I'm going in first class. I won't apologize for that. It's 14 hours. But it's, yeah, I tell people, first of all, it's a heck of a lot more fun back there. Because when you're up front, it's boring. You know, there's not a lot of interesting, but you meet a lot of more interesting people in the back than you do in the front, for starters. You get to see how the entire operation works. It's a message to your customers that they are the most important.
By the way, does everybody know that it's you?
Oh, absolutely. It just, I mean, from the moment I get on board, it's unfortunately, I've lost my anonymity in my airports and my airplanes.
And when the Wi-Fi is bad, do they then come to you?
Absolutely, they come to me. And when it's good, they come to me too. It's also a message to our own people to take care of our customers, and that's the more important thing. And so as a result of that, I fly middle seat a lot, coach.
You're a big guy.
Well, I know, but you can do it for a couple hours. It's not too bad. But it's a reflection of leadership by example, by who you are. No one's going to listen to you if they don't really understand who the person is, what they stand for. And by the way, customers are shocked when they find me back there. They're just shocked. And they appreciate it. And my standard line is that's I don't pay anything for the ticket, so I'm lucky I got a seat at all. I'm lucky I'm not next to the bathroom or in the bathroom, right? And it's also a message to our people about putting others first and serving. And if you're going to serve, and we're in the business of serving, you've got to lead by illustration.
Right. So we were talking when I first started this conversation about this debate that's happening in this country about capitalism, and people talk about inclusive capitalism and what that means. And to me, you have become a role model and a leader in many ways in this respect, because you have shared the profits of your company with the employees in a way, frankly, that most other, not only airlines, but most companies in America don't. Can you speak to when that started, how that started,
Sure.
and why it works?
Well, we kind of fell into it. It wasn't we didn't wake up one morning and say this is the coolest thing ever. By the way, it is the coolest thing ever. But you didn't start there. And the company went through a tough time. We went through bankruptcy. Post 9/11, the airlines were a mess. We wound up filing in 2005 for bankruptcy. Our employees took massive pay cuts, up to 50% pay cuts. Those same people working that airline today are the ones that took those pay cuts back then. And I made a promise to them back then that when we figure this out, that they would get the first returns on that. And so effectively 15% of the profits from the first dollar of our company go to our people. And I don't share in that, participate in that, and I don't get, by the way, if they don't get paid, I don't get paid. 95% of my pay is totally at risk, and that doesn't get paid if those profit sharing payments aren't made. And it was small early, and by the way, when I made that commitment 15 years ago, and you're losing billions of dollars, people didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. They thought, yeah, that would be nice. And then when it finally started to turn the corner and become profitable, I think that was the ultimate glue that brought the company together and brought it into a team environment. And the questions turned from, why does this person have that and I don't have this, to how can we all make the pie bigger and broader for everyone? And we've paid over $1 billion 5 years in a row. We haven't found a company our size anywhere to do it once. And we paid on Valentine's Day. So it's a nice day to fly Delta on Valentine's Day. Everyone is happy.
How much do you worry in this day and age also of this idea of shareholder supremacy and activists and this idea that profit is king, that do investors come to you and say, Ed, stop this. This is craziness.
All the time.
I want you to send that check to me. I'm duly the owner of this company.
All the time. They've stopped coming to me, but a few years ago it was really they were starting to look at us like, who gave you the right to give our money away to these people? And I said, yes, technically it is your capital that you've put at work, but they've put their capital at work too. And their capital is their human capital and their brains and their hard work and their brawn, and they saved this airline. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here even having a conversation. And I also show me an airline that's doing better than us. There's not one anywhere in the world than Delta, both operationally, financially, customer satisfaction scores, and they shut up. They've known that that's the glue that holds us together.
So here's the sort of larger policy question. Do you think that other companies could reasonably do what you're doing today?
I think it's something that other companies should consider. As I say, we were in a situation where when we instituted it, people weren't sure it was worth anything at all. I think there is not a more powerful tool to unify your employees of all groups together around serving people and serving customers and serving each other and serving our community, by the way. And it's a tough break. I certainly encourage any company that's more entrepreneurial in size and startup to do it. I know many do in smaller forms, whether it's stock or other forms of compensation. But if there was a way to do it, I'd encourage someone to do it.
How do you think about the distinction between unionized workers today? And it's clear, I think, over the last 3, 4, 5 decades, unions broadly, airlines maybe not, but unions broadly in America have diminished, and management and workers that are not under that umbrella. Yeah.
Well, we've got our pilots are unionized, but they're the only major group in the company that's unionized. All the other employees at Delta are non-union, have never been unionized. We're 94 years old, not to say the unions don't want to unionize, and I understand that, and we respect our employees' rights to consider their options. But when you have the best performing company that takes the best care of its people, and the airlines, by the way, are a perfect illustration of it. There's not a contract that can protect an employee's job. It's the teamwork between the company together, its management, the trust that exists. There was a role in society, years ago where the unions played an incredibly important role because there wasn't trust between management teams and its workers. Today, that trust at Delta is strong. I mean, trust is everything. That's my credibility at stake. And when they would have to look to someone else to take care of them more than me, that's when I know that I'm not succeeding in my task. And I think many companies feel the same.
To the extent that you look at other airlines that have more unions, do you think that hampers their success?
No, I don't think it's whether they're unionized or not. As I say, our pilots are unionized, so I work well with them. But it's how you make certain that we're all on the same team. We're all on the same page, that it's more important that we're all together, and I do that with our pilots just like any other employee groups. I don't recognize them differently because they're unionized versus otherwise. We got the best pilots in the world, and I love my pilots. But it's very much focused on what your goal is, and our goal is here to serve customers, not to try to figure out how do we maximize our share of a slice of the pie for a period of time.
Okay, but let me ask you a separate question about that. You said your goal at the end of the day is to serve the customer, right?
Serve our people so that they can serve our customers.
Serve your people so they can serve the customer. So when you think today about building your team, and I'm not just talking about your management team, I'm talking about the employees of Delta. And there's a huge conversation in our country right now, of course, about how do we make it more inclusive, both in terms of pay, how do we reach out to groups of people that may not have had opportunities and deserve them, both from an education perspective, I mean, across the board, from a diversity perspective, the whole lot of it. How does Delta, and how do you think about that? Meaning, how much of the conversation, not just in HR, but more broadly, is we want to have a diverse group of workers from all of these different, speak to that.
Well, I think the conversation is a real one that we have, and our goal is to ensure that all of our stakeholders share in our success. One of the most important jobs, some would say the most important job of a CEO, is capital allocation, making sure the limited resources of the company are allocated to the most important priorities. Well, capital allocation to me extends far more beyond financial allocation of capital into product or planes or airports. It goes into people. That's what our profit sharing is, an investment in our people. Our compensation in total is an investment in our people. The tools we give them, the development is an investment in people. Investment in our communities is just as important as the investment in our people. We instituted a few years ago profit sharing for our communities as well, because we started to feel our profit sharing was so great and it was working so well, but we couldn't forget about the people that stood by our side when we weren't so good, and the people that got us here, which are our customers and communities. So 1% of the profits of Delta Airlines go out to all of our communities annually, and it's over $50 million this past year that we paid, and in 2019 that number is going to be even bigger. And it's a commitment for the long term that we're going to keep doing it. And then we also decided this year that, you know, writing a check is great, but what's even better is giving of ourselves. And so we've authorized all 80,000 employees to go out for a full day and work in the community. You pick the charity or the endeavor you want to support, and we'll give Operation Hope's on the list, John. And you get a full day pay at Delta. You know, we got 80,000 employees times 8 hours. It's 640,000 hours that we're giving back to our community. And it's in this way, it's ensuring all stakeholders, you know, our communities involved, our employees involved, our customers involved with the financial investments we're making in physical product. And certainly our owners are involved. They see the dividends. They see we're, you know, buying back the stock where we can, where it makes sense, and keeping that all in balance every year. It's a balancing act, but I think that's where this all starts, and make sure all stakeholders are included in the formula.
What do you make? So you just talked about buybacks, and I don't know how many people here in this room have been focused on this, but corporate America has been buying back its stock in record amounts. Mm-hmm. You could argue that close to a third of the actual volume in the stock market on any given day is a function of corporations buying their own stock back. Yep. And people say to themselves, okay, would they be better off, or from a policy perspective, would we want them to be spending the money on capital improvements, hiring, labor, all of these things? How do you square those things, especially when it comes to this idea of inclusive capitalism?
Well, my definition of when you buy your stock is after you've taken care of all those. The most important investment you make is in your people. And our people are the best paid in our industry by a good measure. And always that's the first place you put it. Second place is your customers, the capital, the planes. We're going to invest $5 billion this year in our company. There's a limit to how fast you can go with airports and technology. We're investing heavily in that space. If we invested even more, I'm afraid we wouldn't be efficient as to how we deploy that. You invest, obviously, in your owners. You pay down debt. We got our investment grade rating back. We actually have a dividend that's yielding about 3% currently. And if there's cash left over after you go through that whole exercise, you really have to return, as long as it's not dilutive to your share. I mean, you're going to have to understand what the intrinsic value of your company is, and if it's below that, you give that back to your owners. But we go through that step methodically, and we calculate what's left. And as I say, you've got to include all stakeholders in success, not just your employees, not just your customers, not just your communities, but your owners. You know, they give us $50 billion of capital to deploy. We got to give them a return.
Okay. Also, another question. Probably in the leadership category, you did something last year that was quite remarkable, which is that you've delved into some pretty controversial social issues. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a large question right now about what the role of a CEO should be when it comes to some of these social issues, some of which are much more delicate than others. You jumped in to the issue of gun violence after Parkland in a major way. And you and everybody here in the state of Georgia knows probably too much about it.
Yep.
You look back on that now, what was the lesson in that?
The lesson is, before you jump into a cause or take a social position, you've got to, first of all, know who you are as a company and the values of the company in order to determine, is this something you should be in or not? The situation with the NRA that you're referring to is that we had a discount that we offered NRA members. And after Parkland and after what we thought was a caustic commentary from the NRA and the inability to really have a true conversation about how we protect our kids, we said we couldn't have our brand affiliated with them in any way. You know, it's not about, you know, it's not, It's not about being anti-guns, anti-Second Amendment, anti-NRA. It was about Delta Airlines didn't need to be part of the conversation. Now, it got interpreted that way, and I understand. And we got charged a $40 million cost from the Georgia State Legislature after they changed their mind on some tax things that they were planning on doing. But I wouldn't have done anything differently looking back. But I knew who we were. I knew this wasn't right. I knew that our kids deserved more. And the reason I found out about it, it was it was a small discount. I didn't know about it. Was the kids at Parkland let me know. The kids at Parkland told me, do you know that Delta Airlines offers a 10% discount to NRA members attending the, I didn't even know that. And as soon as I heard that, I said, we can't do that. And we immediately took it, and then the firestorm hit.
What was the conversation inside the company when you were saying we shouldn't be doing this?
I talked to a few people, but when you see something and you know it's not you, you got to act. I think in today's world with social media, I think time is of the essence as well. You've got to respond. You can't wait till you have a board meeting. You can't wait till you have a, and by the way, if I was going to be held accountable, if my board didn't like the decision, and they wanted to take an action, that's their decision too. But my decision as a leader of the company, and I did talk, and there were some people that had different points of view internally, but in the aftermath of it, I wouldn't have changed.
Okay, but are there certain issues you think that you have an authentic claim on discussing or taking a position on, and others that you don't? And I'll make it complicated for you. Bob Iger, just yesterday from Disney, and there's a number of entertainment companies who've already said, we may pull out of this state, Georgia, over the issue of abortion and how that's being handled. You're based here. Can you take a position on an issue like that?
Not on that issue, because it's truly not relevant to what we do. First of all, abortion is a deeply personal issue, and we serve 200 million people a year. We have 80,000 employees. We have a lot of people on both sides of the issue with very strong, heartfelt opinions, which I respect on both sides. That's not something for Delta to start to advocate for. There's not a financial reason for us to engage in that. If we're issuing a discount to the NRA, that's a reason. We got to justify why do we provide that.
So I would make the argument to you that actually, potentially, whether you have a stake in this issue, insofar as it has an economic outcome, right? I mean, it's a very hard situation to grapple with, but there will potentially be an economic impact on this state, depending on what you think the outcome is.
Right. Because
there are going to be some companies and places that want to do business with Georgia and others that don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it washes out, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But and as the largest or one of the largest employers in the state, I would think that you must have a view.
Well, I've got
as a CEO, as a person and a CEO, and therefore that's why I said it's tough.
It's tough. You're right. It's tough, and I understand why Bob Iger said what he said. He's got some of his talent that doesn't want to work here, and he's just being objective. I mean, it's a reality. For me, I don't win in that, by expressing that. I don't think there is a point of view that wins. Right. I don't want to. You grew up in business. It's very interesting because you're absolutely right. Your entire life building your business and walking up the corporate tree is you learn to not piss off anyone. You want everyone to like you, right? Everyone. I got 200 million. I want all 200 million customers of mine to like me, right? And in today's world, that's just not possible anymore. And we haven't been trained as to how to make those decisions. So how I describe it for me, it's got to be relevant to our company. It's got to be opposed to the culture and the values by which we share. And I'm not looking to be a social activist. I'm looking to be the best airline CEO I can be. And if I am the best airline CEO, there will become times I have to make those decisions. But I'm not looking to run my company for the benefit of politicians or anyone else. I'm looking to run it to delight customers.
Okay, we're going to run out of time, but I have a couple more very quick questions, one of which is in the news today, and I imagine might be on people's minds, so I figured I need to ask, which is, what do you think about what's happening at Boeing? You have a number of Boeing planes. I know you don't fly the 737 MAX, but you do know the company well.
I know the company well. We don't fly the MAX. We made that decision a couple of years ago. We decided to go the Airbus, and in life, sometimes you'd rather be lucky than smart, and that's in the lucky category. That we never thought that the plane was fundamentally unsound and unsafe. Listen, I think it's a tough one. I think Boeing has a credibility challenge right now, which Dennis Muhlenberg, who's a good friend of mine, will acknowledge. He's got to win back, before the airlines, he's going to win back customers' confidence. And I think it's going to take some time. I think they're going to have to be very deliberate in bringing it back. They're amazing. Boeing is an amazing technology provider. We put our lives in their hands every single day. Delta flies over 500 Boeing planes, and we're proud of it. Boeing will get this fixed. The question will be, how bad was that nick on the brand in the consumer's eyes? I think it's going to eventually be fine, and they'll get through it. But it's a tough one.
Okay. We're going to have to almost end it, but since you're a former Frito-Lay man, I just want to know, what is the most popular snack on a Delta plane?
Most popular Delta snack. If I said that, they're going to charge me more to offer it, to buy it. We've been rotating the snacks around
It's a cop-out. Come on, you got to give us something. Give us something.
One of the best is those Oreo little mint things that we serve. People love that, the little can. Anything that's got sugar in it goes.
Okay. Ed Bastian, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.